what does it actually mean for you? You could see a number all day long, but what and why? And it's in my book, both of my numerology books. It's like the knowledge is one thing, but if you allow the numbers to open up something deeper inside of you, and then you're naturally going to either be guided to the answer or your consciousness will open up enough that you're like, aha, all right, now I get it. Right? Like, so the number in of itself activates something deeper within you.
Welcome to the House of Jermar podcast, where wellness starts within. The House of Jermar is a lifestyle brand empowering women to live all in through interior design and personal wellness. We are a destination for women ready to reimagine what is possible in their homes and lives and then create it. We are honored to have you join us on our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. I am your host, Jean Collins, and I invite you to become inspired by this week's guest. Welcome to the House of Jermar podcast, where wellness starts within. I'm your host, Jean Collins, and today we're going to talk about angel numbers. I love this subject. We have Remington Donovan on the show. This is his second appearance. So if you haven't seen him, go back May 15th. He was the guest on May 15th where we talked about his book, Numerology. And today, here, everybody who can see it, we're going to talk about angel numbers. And I am so excited. Remington, welcome back to the show.
Jean, thank you so much. It's also good to talk to a fellow New Englander as well. So thanks for having me again. And yeah, Angel Numbers. This is my latest book. It just came out worldwide. Gosh, just last week. So this is all new and super excited to talk about it.
And angel numbers, I see angel numbers all the time. And I have friends who never see them. They're like, what's wrong with me? And so I'm so excited. We're going to dig into that. And I also personally had a bunch of things happen just in the last 2 days around angel numbers. And I'm going to use some of the things that happened to me as a way for you to show us how the book works based on the things that have happened to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't want to jump ahead because I have a funny comment about something you just posted that I reposted now.
Yes. So we're going to talk about that. All right, we're going to get to that.
So if that's one of the numbers.
It is one of the numbers. I have 2 specific examples in the last 36 hours for you. Okay, so before we get started, for people who haven't seen you before, don't know anything about you, can you give some background about who you are, how you got here, and how you got into this world of numbers, angel numbers, numerology, everything that you do?
Yeah, well, Remington Donovan. Currently, I live in Vermont now. So getting back to my New England roots, where I mostly grew up in Connecticut. So, but from New York City originally. My family's many generation of New Yorkers. And I grew up in Connecticut on a spiritual community, on an ashram. So that started in New York City. And so from birth, I really was exposed to deeper spiritual teachings, people that were very dedicated to their evolution. And hopefully the side effect is an evolution for the planet as well. So, I grew up doing yoga. I grew up learning all about Eastern religions as well as religions from around the world. So I had a childhood that involved meeting many from religious scholars to spiritual leaders, from rabbis to Christian monks to Sikhs to yogis. That was a common daily occurrence for me. And I had to learn also about world religions, the connection to religions. And then as a teenager, I really started to find my way and my path, which was through mystical Qabalah, what's loosely known as maybe Hermetic magic, Western mystery traditions. And then as I grew in that, I was really able to merge the traditions and the mystery schools. And it's just been numerology is one of the foundations, the way all of this was taught to me, but it was taught to me as part of a dharma, a spiritual tradition, a spiritual legacy, not just like, hey, what's fortune telling numbers? Because numbers tie into tarot, it ties into astrology. So I really know it through the lens as a practice to evolve your consciousness, to have a greater experience of yourself and your infinite soul. So numerology in of itself is actually like a yoga, and it's a spiritual practice. So I've just been in it forever. And it was a number of years ago, I think living in Los Angeles for quite a long time. It's a marketable skill set. So there helped me like LA really helped me to turn all of this into an actual career. And I've been writing books on it. This is my third book. So, and it's so much more than numerology. That's just like a simple foundation. But again, this book has been something I probably should have written it a few years ago. But that's my loose, simple background. And then whatever my bio says.
Which I will include the bio in the show notes for everybody, so you can have the official verbiage about Remington. I just want to take a step back for just a second. So you list all of these things that you had to study while you were growing up. And I know from speaking to you before, like you were teaching yoga at 7, which is just mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
And so it feels to me like in some ways you're very much a scholar. Would you consider yourself a scholar?
I mean, that's very much a facet of it, but I do like to distinguish where it could be academic or a scholar, where you become an armchair yogi or an armchair magician, as my other teacher always said. So all of this has to be put into practice. And that's definitely the difference. I have a strong reference point and knowledge, but what I was taught is how to put this into practice. And what does it actually mean, and how can you utilize this as a powerful tool to give yourself, to help, one of the tools to have a better life? And I like your little catchphrase, because it all is inner work that starts to manifest as outer work. But yeah, I'm pretty well versed. I have a lot of reference points, but like I know students or throughout my life that are getting, PhDs in ancient Tibetan language and Tibetan Buddhism or other systems. But I'm like, have you ever even meditated? Like, have you done it? Have you put it into practice? I always think of this saying that I heard: it ain't spiritual if it ain't practical. Like if you're not putting it into practice. So, but I was exposed to a lot of teachings from day one, and whether it's mantra, whether it's actual different religious texts and things like that. So I do enjoy that as well. But then I was blessed to these different practices and how to do it. And then like, what does it actually mean for you? You could see a number all day long, but what and why, you know? And again, and it's in my book, both of my numerology books. It's like the knowledge is one thing, but if you allow the numbers to open up something deeper inside of you, and then you're naturally going to either be guided to the answer, or your consciousness will open up enough that you're like, aha, all right, now I get it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so the number in of itself activates something deeper within you.
Yes. Well, and I do love in the book, you do talk about different ways to look at the numbers, whether it be in your numerology book or your angel number. And you say things about what the numbers might mean, but then you give both sides. Like, what might the number be telling you to look out for? Or what might like you try to give some direction to help people really think about how it would apply to their lives at that given point in time. Because I would also think, and you can correct me here if I'm wrong, I would also think, if I see the number 3, which we're going to talk about that, in abundance today, versus I see the number 3 2 months from now, it might actually be meaning something different to me at that point in time.
Well, a little bit, yes, but it may be a different course of action. Like 3 is still going to hold, how should I say it? The numerology and what I write in my books, in particular angel numbers, this is like I want to write a book about writing this book, because this is sort of, it's simplified, right? I was asked to write 20,000 words, which is not very long. Mm-hmm. And if you saw the stacks of notebooks that I have and reference points based on ancient Hebrew, and which I don't know it so much as the spoken language, but I know how to transliterate. and the Hebrew letters have numerical values. So a lot of the definitions in here are based on all the different words that have been passed around different mystery schools for probably thousands of years at this point, or that rabbis and other, say, Hebrew scholars have been keeping track of, also rooted in ancient Greek system, because the ancient Greek has numerical values to the letters. And then all of that can be put into English as well, and then other deeper teachings. So it's from a tradition. And that's the thing. So a lot of my words are very intentional, but as a reader, you're not going to know. Like, for example, the number 111, I talk about sort of inspired new beginnings, a lot of potential. It's a number of lightness and joy. But why is it lightness and joy? And part of that is because this all merges even with tarot and with mystical Qabalah, because the Hebrew letter Aleph, which is the first letter of the alphabet, is number 1. But if you spell out that letter, Aleph Lamed Peh, in Hebrew, that equals 111. Well, that's also the letter that corresponds to the Fool card in the tarot. The Fool card is the origin of everything. And hidden in that is something known as the Ain Sof, and the Ain Sof Or. Nobody's going to know what that is. And if I write that book, except for like my students or mystical Kabbalists, are going to be like, what the heck? Like, I didn't want that. I wanted to say, well, this is the energy of a new beginning, because Ain Sof, and Ain Sof Or, this is the primordial, almost the negative space in which all creation came out of. So it's like, what do you want to create? You're here, you're at it. It's at your fingertips. The Fool is the spiritual teaching of trust and lightness of being. And I was always taught the Fool is inebriated by spirit. So it's really a happy, joyous, and free and powerful life. But that stuff is cool to me. But this was the hardest book I ever wrote, because I needed to take all these ideas and these technical terms, if you're not familiar with it, and summarize it in an easy way that I want anybody could open this book and get a sense and be like, oh yeah, I get it. Right. And originally, in my first drafts, I had some of the traditional meanings, and some of this comes from the Bible, from the Zohar, from the Torah, and other Greek and Rosicrucian texts. And it's like, the words are written in these old languages, or coming from the Bible, like everybody's smiting each other, like, what does that mean? So I just updated, I simplified it, and I want people to open this like a fortune cookie or something, and just, here's a few paragraphs. But even the 1 through 99, I have pages and pages and pages and pages of notes and reference points, and then just teachings and things that were handed down to me. My job for this book was to just, what's the story here? Let me summarize that as a message for anybody reading it.
Which I think you did a great job. And you do talk in the very beginning of your book about numerology is a story. It's about storytelling. And you say that right up front in one of the very beginning pages. I want to say maybe like around page 19, 21-ish. You're kind of talking about that, which I thought was really interesting, because you almost made it sound like a romance language the way you were talking about it. So it was kind of pretty cool.
I love that perspective.
Yeah, you did. Which was really great. So I have a really basic question.
Okay.
Maybe there isn't an answer to this. Where did the term angel numbers come from? Because they're still just numbers based in numerology.
Yeah.
Where did the word angel number come from?
I hope my publisher doesn't hear this. So I really have no idea, to be honest. Being totally devout and dedicated, almost to the point of like joining a monastic order, I never used that word. Right. I never heard it until, I don't know, a few years ago, especially living in LA. It just sort of is more common speak. Right. So in this sort of just current vernacular, to me, it's a little, I don't know, new agey. But at this point, I think we've crossed a threshold where people sort of understand and have heard the term so much that I was fine just calling this angel numbers. But in the traditions that the real systems, if you will, of numerology come from, it's not called that. But what I will say, to take it deeper, is, for example, all of the numbers 1 through 10 that correspond to the tree of life of mystical Qabalah in the tradition, the way it was taught to me, each of those numbers, not only do they have corresponding like planetary aspects, like it's called the mundane chakra. So Qabalah is the number 5, and that means severity, but it's attributed to Mars. Mars is attributed there. And then there are names of God, and then there are archangels and whatnot that correspond. So in reality, there are angels that surround all of the numbers, but I still never called them angel numbers. So I still find from that context, it's interesting that somehow people started picking up on that. And I think too, we could say, well, there are angels can be messengers or helpful energy fields or spirits, however you want to look at it, but think of something beneficent and kind coming from a greater universe. Here's a little message. So it is accurate. I've just never used it. And, my publisher understood enough that like people know about it this way. And so I was fine with it because I could write book 2 and I'll attribute what different archangels or order of angels or God names are attributed to the different numbers.
That makes sense then. And I would say angel numbers is very like, it's new age. It's very hip. It's very cool. And it spans lots of different generations. And so, everybody kind of knows what angel numbers are. So in that sense, I think your book has a perfect title.
I agree. I think because people will know it as that, so it's easier. And it's funny because there's so much, like you really could get academic. I could probably teach you like a college course on this based on the root meanings and the ancient Hebrew. But that's not practical numerology. You can't put that into practice. So I was lucky enough, I was taught, and through my own experiences, how you could take all these disjointed sounding words to smite, a bowl, a fig, fruit, like 111. I did write that in here. I occasionally drop some of the traditional references as a precious jewel, right? So, the idea is like, okay, take what I shared here. What I want to say, without trying to seem like I'm trying to prove myself, is that this book is really rooted in something, and rooted in something ancient, because I have looked through other books or things online. It's not based on anything. It's made up. And at the same time that numerology is meant to be a tool to open your consciousness and flow with it, the difference here, because it's rooted in something, you're going to flow off a stronger foundation, as opposed to, you'll see like the number 4. Well, it's protection because it's 4 walls or this or that. And I'm like, well, that's not untrue, right? But where is that coming from and why? And this book is rooted. So I hope, my real hope is that people open it up and they're seeing a number and it really makes sense in an uncanny way.
Yeah. That makes sense. All right. So I have a question about how you formatted the book. Like, how did you choose? So just so everyone knows, the book starts off with triple numbers, right? So 111, 222, 333, and we go all the way up to 9, right? 999. And then you skip 1010, which I'm going to ask about in a second. Then you get to quadruple 1111. And then you start and you do 1 through 99. And you cover each individual number, 1 through 99, right? And you even talk about how if you see repeated numbers or like an address, there are many ways that we can look at it. We can look at it as 528, or you could look at it as 5 plus 2 plus 8. Like there's so many different ways to look at the numbers that you see again and again. So my question under all that is, how did you decide that it was the triple numbers and then the individual?
Well, I knew first off the triple numbers. In my experience, is when people think of angel numbers, it's, 555, whatever, 777. Yeah. I was on the fence about 1010. I mean, sorry, 1010.
1010, yes.
Because in the book, I explained a very simple sort of Kabbalistic creation mythology, if you will. But the idea behind anything 3, which makes like a triangle, is if you go from creation 1, 2, and 3, the 3 is the first time, if you take 3 dots or 3 points, this is the first time in the creation of the universe that you have something that makes a container. You have all these sides. So the 3 is considered the idea of form. So 3 is a powerful number of manifestation. And so when we see things in threes, because it's the space that manifests all the concepts of it, it really is stronger and it seems more intense. And people really notice those numbers in my experience. And that's why you would notice triple numbers. Because people will send me quadruple numbers. Hey, I'm seeing 7777.
Yeah.
But I know intuitively when I look at that, the energy dissipates. Where 3 holds a stronger space.
Interesting.
And so part of it's popular culture, but a lot of it's really the mystical Qabalah. And then I just know that 1111, that's like the big one. I even explain in my book, it's like the most popular and nobody knows what it means, which is sort of what 1111 means, because 11 is like this infinite expanse of everything. Well, what the heck does that mean? Right. So I'm trying to contextualize it and give you like, it's each one of those is like a little over 1,000 words. So it was a real discipline to keep it brief.
Yeah.
1010, I don't know. It just doesn't come up. I could have 1212. 1010, I would mostly be drawing out what does 10 even mean. So, and then 1 through 99, I knew that if I had that, you have all the numbers to some degree. So whatever it is, what the real practice of numerology is, there's 2 rules. The first rule is there are no rules. And to contradict that, the second rule, even though there are no rules, is there are no coincidences.
Okay.
So it's meant to be a mind-bending opening experience, which I say is like a story. So if you have 1 through 99, you can now juxtapose any numbers. And so that's where it's up to you to start to flow with it. It's like, I always think too, how like you could have September 11th, or we call 911, but somehow 9/11 is September 11th.
Right.
Right. So I will say, or like an address, like, how do you say it? Maybe look at those numbers. Like if your address is 4598, I bet you most people say I live at 4598.
Right. Yes.
Right. So that's like holding that energy and that frequency. So I would look at those 2 numbers first. So the numerology is not meant to be like a strict way it has to be done. But I knew that if I laid out all those numbers, you could come up with any number.
Yes. That's so interesting. And you just made me think as you're talking about how you say a number. And I was like, I'm thinking about my address. And I'm like, I live at 163. Like, it's not 163. I live at 163 is how I say it, which is so interesting. So now I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm going to go look up a 1 and a 63. That's kind of cool.
Now I'm like, wait, I've been using this book as my own reference, because even though I wrote it, I'm like, wait, how did I contextualize this one again? Like, there are some authors, they like write their book and they're so fanatical that it's like they remember every line. I swear to God, I just get into this zone and I'm like, wait, did I do that? Like I just like come up for air and there's a book under me. 63, be thankful for what you have. So be thankful for your house if that's the address. Like I have a double number, but you just brought up something good, because I was like, wait a minute, it's 163. Like, that's how I would say it, even though when I look at it, it's 163.
It's 163.
Yeah. So even a triple, whatever, but play around with it. When I was in Egypt a few years ago and the emergency code, it was like, in case of fire, dial 666.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that's their 911.
Right. Yes. Okay. So I'm so glad you brought up 666, because I actually had a couple specific questions, and 666 is one of them. So 666 is often people are like, oh, you saw 3 6s, 666. That's the devil number.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because that's not how you describe it in your book.
Well, I did get into that a bit. So I mean, six in of itself is a number of sort of cosmic harmony, and it really represents a flow of beauty. It's attributed to the sun. Now, 666 is really the number of enlightened humanity, or it's the idea of your highest self. Because six, well, one of the reasons is six is considered the union of the macrocosm and the microcosm. If you look at a six-sided star or a hexagram, in the magical and Kabbalistic traditions, that's God and man, or, however, whatever that greater force of the universe, the divine mixing with the mundane.
Mm.
Now, 666 is code for your highest self. But the spiritual teaching is that your highest self is really your divine self, and it's connected to your soul that's connected to God, goddess. I don't want to interfere with someone else's experience or how they like to say that.
Hmm.
But so 666 is like this greatness or this power. But you have to know that it's not you, your ego, that who you are and even your higher self is merely a reflection, and
Mm.
is a reflection of something divine. The trappings where it becomes satanic, if you will, in the context of this tradition, Satan even sort of loosely means that which separates you from God. All of a sudden, the ego comes in, and you're
Yeah.
like, you know what? It's me.
Yeah.
Right. So on a spiritual path where someone becomes dark, or say a black magician or something, this is getting a little deeper than I thought I'd talk on this podcast, but is when, you've been very dedicated, say on a spiritual path, but it could just be you're very dedicated to your work and your profession and whatever the case is. But you realize just once you think that it's not coming from something higher, that what you have isn't some blessing from spirit, and that your higher self isn't that. And once you think it's you,
Mm.
that's where things go dark, and that's where you separate and you remove spirit out of it. And so the idea of like the devil is like really ego, false self run amok.
Ooh.
And then it's considered in the Bible the number of the beast. But we are also all beasts in that we're in a corporeal form as an animal. But so you can get really like heady and layered, but overall it's a reminder that you have greater capacity, greater capability. But when you think it's all about you and your ego, that's where it all goes dark.
And that's so perfectly said. I love that explanation. Yeah, it's not saying like it's death. It's saying it's just like the death card in tarot. It's like it's not necessarily saying you're going to die. It's a lot of times it's an awareness that you need to look inward for an awareness of something that isn't actually aligned with your highest self.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you're seeing 666, generally speaking, it's going to be a message to say, hey, bring your best self to the situation, but know that your best self, really, if you're just an open conduit of something higher, everything will really flow. And six is the number of harmony.
Mm.
So, but it gets askew, right? The ego of mankind. Some of the like biblical texts and references and scholarly texts to 666 think it also referred to Emperor Nero. So it's like he just was like wanton, reckless, blind ambition of materialism and gain. And I'm the emperor, right?
Yeah.
So where do you become that type of tyrant? And where do you get so disconnected from spirit that the only goal you have is material gain? And you forget that all of the blessings and everything everyone has all comes from spirit.
Yeah. I love that.
So it's a very layered number, but I also think people are afraid of it because we're also inadvertently afraid. The devil in the magical tradition is like the part of us that we demonize our success and our spiritual growth.
Mm.
Right. So we're afraid. Sometimes we're afraid to make that leap. We're afraid to get out of a comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right. Or we're afraid of our own ability and power.
Sure. course.
So
Very common.
that's where there's a lot of fear and misunderstanding around it. And I could write a book probably just on 666.
It sounds like it. Yeah, that's awesome though. I love that. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about another specific number. So I posted this
Sure.
on Instagram this morning. I go on TikTok a couple times a week. I'm not there all the time. I went onto TikTok. I opened TikTok and I looked at something, and then I happened to look at my profile, and I follow 33 people. I had 333 people following me, and I had like 3,833 likes or something like that. I can't remember. But
Right.
I was like, look at all those threes, and then an 8 in the middle. And I was like, look at all those threes. Okay. So really practical for someone. If you're someone like me and I see that and I see all those threes and I pick up your book, what am I going to learn by reading your book about all those threes?
So I reposted that post, and one
Yeah.
of my students messaged me, and
Yeah.
they said, "It sounds like this podcast might have to be a therapy session."
That's why I was like, yes, this is so good. We're going to use me as our real life example here, folks.
Well, they know enough about threes or 333 because they follow a lot of my deeper work. Like if you hop on my
Yeah.
Patreon, the backstory to all these numbers is what I can talk about. I mean, a little bit here too, obviously, but in general, like I was saying earlier, 3 represents something manifest. In mystical Qabalah, it's attributed to Saturn. Saturn is the taskmaster. In my book, I framed 3s as Saturn gets what Saturn wants because she works for it.
Okay.
And so it's a number of applying yourself, being disciplined, getting to work, but it's usually a sign that, hey, you're coming along, but there's still work to be done. It's a roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty and do it. Now, 333 gets a lot deeper because 333 is often it's unresolved issues that need to be addressed in some form or another. And my joke is like, what's coming back to haunt you? And this comes from such a deeper place of the Hermetic tradition, but it sort of represents this energy in this area known as the abyss, or let's say the dark night of the soul might be a way people have heard that in some way or form or another. But it's this where everything you thought you've overcome is coming back up. So everything you thought you've resolved, but that's like heavy and deep and like too intense. But it's literally like, hey, there's some more work to do. So why don't we get into those details? And Saturn, again, is the taskmaster. And one of the things I say in my book is it's kind of like God helps those who help themselves. So it's just saying, like, let's say you wanted to grow TikTok. Let's just keep it really simple. You're not on it that much, and all of a sudden all these 3s, that might be a hint that say, hey, Gene, perhaps you should grow this platform a little more. Maybe you should put a little more work into that media of it, because that's where all the eyeballs are,
Right. Sure.
So it's something like that. My clue into the book that I was really on to something, even though I'm just sharing the basic teachings of the numbers, is my father-in-law. As I was writing the book, he was visiting and he was like, Remington, I am seeing 333 like you wouldn't believe. And he's got that like Massachusetts Boston accent. He's huge character, right? He's like, you wouldn't believe it. I'm seeing 333. He used to be the mayor of their city. He's just like high energy guy. So I let him read the chapter. Like, it wasn't quite the final, but it was basically it. And I said, read 333. Tell me what you think. And his like jaw dropped and he was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I'm going through. And he was going through a lot of details with his business, which he owns with his brothers, and a lot of work throughs. And there's a lot of things that they need to resolve and a lot of details moving forward, which involved legal stuff, all positive stuff, but there was just a lot of nitty gritty. And he couldn't believe. And so right there, I was like, I'm really, this book is on to something, because his mind was blown. He's not like meditating, doing inner work. He's a great guy. And he's super open-minded, but like my mom, I grew up on an ashram. My mom's going to be like, yeah, I'm seeing this number, but when he told me everything he was doing with the business, which was about resolving any future issues or conflicts and getting all of this other stuff square, and it'd been a lot of work, it made so much sense.
Mm.
So that was my big clue. I was like, this is it.
There's something to this. Yes. Yes. Well, so I saw all those threes. I posted and I was like, yeah, I'm talking to you because this is real life. You can help me with this. And I did go and I read the 333 part of the book. And I was like, oh, wow, I have to come back and really sit and think about that because I felt personally for my own life, I'm trying to build and create and do a lot of different things. But the way I interpreted it was like, oh, wow, I read the first part and I was like, okay, I got to go read about the threes and go read about 33 too. And I was going to read all three. Then I need to go and sit down with that and really think about how that applies to my life and where I am and what I'm working on and like really actually sit and kind of absorb that, which was very cool.
And you're a great student. Like that's what I want, because what is it for you? I mean, is it really building out TikTok? Like that's part of it, but it's like, it's just a message of what you said. But now it's like, okay, the universe is telling you something about work. 33 is another sort of there's so much like conspiracy theory that I see, and people always send me numerology stuff, but 33 is a really sort of number of blessings. You're doing it exactly the way I intended. Like that experience is going to unravel in your own consciousness and you're going to come up with an answer, right? Is it work? Is there some sort of unresolved something? Maybe, or maybe it's just like, I better get going on this. It's managerial tasks,
The unresolved issues. So I was like, oh man, I have to go see my mom this afternoon. And
Right.
Anyone who knows me and my mom, and she has dementia and that relationship, and I don't even like her, but I'm helping her. I'm like, oh, here we go. I was like, that's handing that on a plate right there.
My editor asked if I could put some of my personal experience that would maybe help people have some context.
Yeah.
But it's like, I put basically two examples. When I was writing the book, I was seeing 333 constantly, and I'm like, I got to go back over. I got to rewrite. Anyone who's written a book knows you don't just write one book. You write about, anywhere from 4 to 10 books.
Yes.
So it's kind of exhausting, but I kept seeing it and I'm like, okay, what do I have to retweak? What do I need to go back over and edit before I finally set it in? But I do notice when I go to New York City, which is where basically my ancestors from coming to America from 100 and something years ago, they've all been rooted there. So I'm seeing like, is it all negative issues? It's just like something that's my past. That's my ancestral past until I get to Europe and all those places. But it's like, okay, 100 and something years of New Yorkers. Why am I always seeing 333? And that really fascinated me in one of my last trips. I just started to think about it and I shared that in the book, but it's not always like bad. It's every number you can use it in a very positive way.
Yes. Yes. Or it could be there to help you get an awareness. And, and if you don't pay attention and don't do the work, my guess is that number's going to keep appearing until you are doing the work.
Yeah, in particular, that one, like 444 is sort of, that's the easy blessings number. I think what I say, it's like, these are not the ones in disguise, So I was like, I wish I saw that number more. It's like, I'm like, please, universe, more 444s. It's this number of perfect love.
Yes.
I do see a lot because we live in Vermont, my wife and I and our kids. It's so rural. The license plates all have 6 digits, 3 letters and 3 numbers. So the opportunity to see triple digit angel numbers is like constant here.
Yes.
Like somebody was trying to let me out in I say traffic, but they were trying to let me out after like living in LA for a long time. But I saw, of course, their license plate was 888. And I'm like, oh, the life force of the universe, this like little angels coming in, but I couldn't get through because too much oncoming traffic.
Uh-huh.
But it was funny because he was just trying to be super nice. And so I'm like thinking now out loud, like, what is that 888? That's like life force. It's something eternal, making something sustainable and permanent. I was leaving from the donut shop because that's how I lured my kid to go out and go grocery shopping. I was like, we'll get a
Uh-huh.
donut.
There you go.
But I don't know yet what it means. Like, I need to sort of think on it.
Yeah. And let it come to you. Yeah. Which is good.
And just for the record, I want people probably think that I am like obsessing constantly like a madman looking at numbers. And I'm not. It's just you get a sense when it's a message, and sometimes it's a number. Probably that license plate. It probably was a number. It just felt like, hey, what a nice little guy who has a lot of upbeat energy, wants to help people. 8 is the healer. It's a
Yeah.
helpful energy.
Yeah. Well, but you do talk in your book about like not overanalyzing and not going crazy. Like sometimes you see numbers and they don't mean anything. I don't know where in the book you had this story, but you had a story about someone calling you and being like, should I take this flight at this time?
Oh, yeah.
Because the time the flight leaves is a better number. And your response is like, don't go that deep with it. Does it work for you? Like, does the time work for you? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like, and again, at the same token, you might like get an intuitive sense. Like here's what numerology does is it opens up your consciousness, and then synchronicity starts to happen in your life. Right. So it's like synchronicity is like a message of destiny, or it's a spiritual language, in my opinion. And so when you're in that alignment and things like I know you've experienced, I know people listening where all of a sudden they just have that day and they run into like opportunity. It all is like not strategized and this great flow. And then but if you start practicing and working with the numbers, you'll notice in other areas of your life will start flowing. And so as you do it more, you would get a sense of intuition, like, maybe that wouldn't be a good flight, but for the most part, you gotta be realistic. Like in my first book, I shared a story. I changed a flight. So I wanted to change my seating, and I was like, New York to LA. And I was like, the 22A is open. I'm like, 22 is a number of connections and 22 paths on the trail. I love that number. Yeah. And A is Aleph, is the fool. Oh, there'll be a nice, light, fun trip. And all I wanted to do is like unwind. I was going to watch movies. I wanted to veg out. And then my screen didn't work. I sat next to someone eating like a tuna sandwich that they brought on a plane that they hadn't showered. They were wearing one of those sleeveless tank top things. Oh. And then the other woman was eating like, teriyaki beef jerky. It was like, all these, odors. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I couldn't even watch a movie. But I felt like I had forced that number. Oh, that's such a good number. I should have just kept my, like, I don't know. It's like, you can't force it either.
Right.
That's the point.
Yes, you can, which is beautiful. All right. So share with us before we run out of time here, what does your life look like? What does a day look like for somebody like you who does this for a living?
Well, it incorporates more than numerology, but my basic day to day, I mean, I really like to do meditations like early morning, but sometimes with young kids it doesn't always work out that way. So it's always a little family time in the morning, and then a lot of my work is is a lot of teaching online, video content on my Patreon, and then if I see clients, and then working with an editor to put more on social media, and then really having the space, because a lot of this is creative, and where am I going to make a video, say for my Patreon or coming up with workshops, there's like themes. So I put a lot of time and some research into, well, I have to create a narrative or a story about this situation, or what is this astrology about? Because I'm also, it's astrology, it's tarot, it's numerology. They all merge as one harmonized thing, which is mystical, right, Qabalah or mysticism. So that's my like day-to-day work. And then, now a lot of it's family, and with the house, now it's like prepping for winter. But I always try to get in some sacred meditative practice and writing and again, I make a lot of videos, but they're very intentional. So I'm looking through a lot of my books that are all back here. What teachings can I share, but how is it helpful for this person? So, but that's
Right.
kind of my job. I mean, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Thanks to LA, like it's a marketable skill set. Like I learned how to turn this into a career, which every day I have to remind myself that I'm super grateful that I get to do what I do, and I could turn it into things. So, and then I'm planning more books. I have book signings
Yeah.
coming up. I'm doing one in, if anybody's New England,
Yeah.
Manchester, Vermont at Northshire Bookstore on the 18th. And
Nice.
then on 11/13, Andover, Massachusetts at a place called Privé. And then I have something in the works in Newburyport, Mass. I want to do something. I got to find a good spot in Connecticut,
You do.
my old roots where I
You
mostly grew up.
You
So
do. You do. And I will come. Well, yeah, we're going to have this episode come out in a couple of weeks because I put you on the calendar, but waited to do the actual recording until your book was out. But you've been on the calendar to come out. So this will actually come out in 2 weeks for everybody so that it will be close. It'll be October. 2 weeks is October 16th, 17th ish.
yeah,
So it'll come out before then because I wanted people to get it.
right before the 18th.
Yeah.
Northshire Bookstore is one of the best bookstores in America. And I'm not just saying that
Ooh.
because it's my local bookstore and I'm friendly
Yeah.
and they're very supportive. It really is like on the map. So it's a fun, I mean, Manchester, Vermont, it's a great little day trip if you're
It
close
is.
enough. And it's fall. So we got all the magic.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give out shots of maple syrup.
There you go. I love the polar opposites to LA and Vermont, where you live now, are
They
truly
really are.
amazing. Like, they couldn't be more different destinations within our country, I think, than those two.
Yeah, I had to learn how to use a chainsaw, a bunch of things.
All
I'm
right.
like,
So
what's the
before,
numerology of chainsaw?
yeah, right. Exactly. All right. Before we run out of time, you are
Yeah.
building a studio. Talk to us about your studio and what you're going to be doing with this new studio.
Well, a lot of it's going to be so like for studio, it's kind of small, but I will, moving into next year, I want to host some deeper immersions that relate to tarot and all the things that I teach and numerology and whatnot. Cause again, they all merge. And then a lot of it's where I'm going to be set up to film the workshops and the stuff that I teach online. And I want to get my podcast up and going again. So just having the space finally and just being
Yeah.
able to work from home and still feel like, hey, I'm going off to work.
Uh-huh.
So we just put in the beautiful birch floors and we have huge windows and mountain views. So it's very bucolic little setting here. So, but I will keep your ears open because these are going to be small as it grows. Some of it will start off invite. But I'm going to do more immersions and I have other things in the works that I got to keep quiet, but I will
Yeah.
keep you posted because I'd love
Love it.
if you share. And I'm
I would
trying
love
to
to.
branch out in New England more.
Oh, cool. That would be great. Yeah, share along. And I'll put in the show notes too how people can follow you on Instagram and they can go to your website and they can sign up. You have a newsletter, you have all kinds of things. And you and your
Yeah.
wife, she does like an amazing job with communication for sure.
Oh, yeah. She's a whiz. Also, I have starting at the end of October, we offer our numerology reports, which is your numerology for the
Yes.
year,
Yes.
which I think is just knowing what your number is for the year is just a direct point. Like people that love astrology, you could really get so bogged down. And I feel like you get to a point of crazy where you're like navigating the world like you're a cat thief going into it, like one of those heist movies, and there's all the lasers and they're trying to go
Yes.
through the museum or something.
Yes.
And it's like, here's your number.
Yeah.
Remember this.
Remember
And those are very helpful. So yeah, I'll keep you
Yeah.
posted. And thank you,
Absolutely.
everybody. I love it. And I love we're kind of close.
We're kind of close. Absolutely. We're kind of close. And I love following you on Instagram. And just a plug for everybody. You mentioned the numbers of the year that come out in November. I did that. I bought them as gifts for people. And you guys do this like beautiful way that you write them and they come in an envelope and it's sealed. And it's such a special gift. So I did do it last year for a couple of people, in addition to doing it
thank
for
you.
myself. And it's just a really unique, special gift to give to someone, is an insight into them and their number for the upcoming year. which is very cool.
There's a ton of intention. I play prosperity mantra. There's like we put a lot into it. So,
You do. And you can tell when you get it. It's a great gift.
All right. It's always an honor talking to you.
Yeah.
And
thank you so much, Remington, for
I'll see you
coming.
soon.
I really
Thanks,
appreciate
Jean.
it. And we will absolutely stay in touch. I hope everybody has a beautiful day. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the House of Jermar podcast, where wellness starts within. We appreciate you being a part of our community and hope you felt inspired and motivated by our guest. If you enjoyed this episode, please write us a review and share it with friends. Building our reach on YouTube and Apple Podcasts will help us get closer to our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. You can also follow us on Instagram at House of Jermar and sign up to be a part of our monthly inspiration newsletter through our website, houseofjermar.com. If you or someone you know would be a good guest on the show, please reach out to us at podcast@houseofjermar.com. This has been a House of Jermar production with your host, Jean Collins. Thank you for joining our house.